Good night. Have one to us tonight. God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J. Spirits Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. And the topic going to be the death of Jacob. You know, it's going to come from Genesis chapter 48, 29, 33. It also going to continue on chapter 50, verse 1 to 14. So now Jacob is about to give you know, all instruction that he about to gather with his own people. You know, so Jacob said, bury him with his father in a cave in the field, you know, the Hazanites near Meron in Cana, you know, which Abraham had brought along with the field as a burial place from Hazanite. You know, so Abraham and his wife Sarah, Isaac, and his wife Rebecca, and Lee, you know, are buried there. You know, and I was surprised to see Lee. You know, he give her a hard time while she was living. You know, and thank God at the end of her life, he honored her and put her in a burial site next to his grandfather and his father. That was amazing. You know, so the field in the cave or the burial site. Abraham had purchased to bury Sarah and the whole family. You know, so when Jacob had finished giving instructions to his boys, you know, um, um, then he threw his feet up into the bed and he took his last breath and he was gathered with his people. You know, Jacob died and he had lived 147 years. You know, so he lived 140 years. That was a full life that he lived. You know, and we see that Jacob had blessed all 12 of his sons, you know, and then he gave instruction where he worked to be buried. You know, so same field and cage that Abraham had purchased. After he finished, he took his last breath and died. You know, so we're going to continue on chapter 50, verse 1 to 14. Joseph threw himself, you know, at his father. After his father died, he threw himself over his father. And then he wept and he kissed his father. You know, Joseph directed the physical and the service to embalm his father Israel. You know, Jacob was embalmed, which the father it took 40 days. It took 40 days to embalm his father, and the Egyptian mourned for him for 70 days. You know, so after mourning had passed, Joseph said to Pharaoh that he swore an oath and said, I am about to die. So he telling Pharaoh his daddy had died. You know, he swore to his father, you know, that he wants to be buried in Canaan. You know, so he telling Pharaoh, let me go bury my father in Canaan, but I will return back to Egypt. And we know Joseph is a faithful person. If Joseph said he's gonna do something and he's gonna return back, he surely will. You know, so Joseph went and buried his father. You know, with all Pharaoh officers, all the members of Joseph's household and his brothers, you know, only their children and the flocks and herds were left in Gusau. You know, so it was a very large company that went along, and when it reached the threshing floor, they they loudly had wheat bitterness. You know, Joseph observed for 7 periods a mourning for his father. You know, so that's a hurting thing. You know, basically was away from his father for almost 23 years. You know, and both them lived to see each other. You know, so when the Canaanites who lived there, you know, when they saw them coming to Canaanites to bury Jacob, and the people that's already living in Canaanites, they saw it. They, you know, they mourning for on the threshing floor for Jacob. You know, so the Egyptians are holding a ceremony, a mourning. Jacob's son did as he had commanded them, you know, to carry him to the land of Canaan and bury him in a cave in the field, near which Abraham had brought along with the field as a burying place, you know, from Hazanah, you know. So after burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt together with his brothers and all the other who had gone with him to bury his father. You know, so Joseph stuck to his promise. You know, he told Pharaoh, just let me go bury my father. You know, I swore to my father that I would bury him in Canaan. So let me go bury my father, and I will come back to Egypt. I will return back to Egypt. And we see that he did. He stuck on his promise, and he returned back to Egypt. So he could have stayed in Canada if he wanted to, but he knows God's plan. So he has to go back. So the various churches that they made. Lee, Lee, who compete with her sister. When they first met Jacob, Lee was comparing. She was comparing to her sister, Rachel, for Jacob's attention for much of the life at last has Jacob. You know, companionship that she is buried with him, and that was a shocking. So Jacob make it clear that he wants to be buried in the cave that his grandfather Abraham purchased for his niece to bury Sarah. But this plot of land is gone down on payment on his promise to give Abraham offspring. So the land of Canaan, so the caves that carry the significance of their promise as well as being like the family. So Jacob make a point of saying that Abraham and Isaac are buried there with their wives, and he wished to lie next to his wife Leah. Because that's what I was saying. Now, Sarah, not Sarah, Rachel, got buried on the side of the road somewhere was there was on their journey, and she was conceiving a baby and did not make it. Now he could have had them to carry her to the burial site where everybody else was at, but he did not do that. He said put his body next to Lee, his wife. You know, and they just left Rachel where she was at. Who was already buried in a cave. But Rachel is not buried there because she died during childbirth while the family was traveling on a spiritual trip. You remember God had called Jacob to come to Bethel, on a spiritual thing, So then he had to clean house. He had to make sure all the kids, all the boys, had thrown away their guards and everything else. He had to clean house. So on their way there, Rachel was conceiving a childbirth and did not make it. But now since they had to carry Jacob, they could have carried Rachel too, but he chose not to. He said bury him next to his wife Leah. So that's a blessing that he decided to honor her at the end of her days, because he gave her a hard time, so it's good that he did honor her and he recognized her, appreciate her, and then he also wanted to lie next to her at his dying days, so that's all the word I have for you on today. That's the death of Jacob. He lived a full life, 147 years. He was the third link of God's plan. And God told him your offspring were going to be a nation. And they will. They're increasing already. He already had 12 kids, but now he got wives and children and everything else. And they're going to continue on increasing as a nation. So God's plan is coming together and it's just getting started. That's not the end. It's just getting started. So this all the word I have for y'all today. And then the next story for tomorrow gonna be Joseph reassure his brothers, that he gonna let them know that God will come back for you. So this is God's plan. And it's just getting started. We got more and more to discuss about God's plan until God free them until they conquer their land. Once they conquer their land, God's plan will be complete, and he gonna get so much glory off. He got so much glory off of this story, So then afterwards, gonna be the death of Joseph. So Joseph and Jacob, they lived long enough to see one another when they both. Joseph never thought he would see his father again. you know. And Jacob never thought he'll see his son again when he thought he was dead, you know. So it was a blessing that both of them lived to see each other, you know. So y'all have a blessed night, and I see y'all on the next video.